Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of March 9th. We have a quorum, and so I call our meeting to order. Our first item of business is approval of the regular meeting minutes from February 24th. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, minutes are approved. And do we have any sign-in sheets, Scott? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. All right. So Tony, what item is Tony wanting to speak to? Don't know. Yeah, it might be. Okay. Well, we'll do item P1, and then when we get to P2, we'll hear from the public comment on that issue. So item P1 is Ordinance 33-0-20, extending time for the applicant to obtain a building permit for 938 Custer Avenue. This is, thank you. Okay. Is there a second? So this plan development was originally approved April 8th, 2019, and this ordinance would grant an extension of 1 year for a building permit to be issued and construction to begin. There are no other changes to the development as proposed. Is there any discussion?
I'm just going to make a quick comment. So just a quick comment. Sadly, one of the principals from the developer passed away a little bit ago, so that accounts for, I believe, accounts for the delay. So it seems like obviously a reasonable request given the circumstances.
Okay. Any other comments? Then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, so that's moved for introduction. Then item P2, this is ordinance 34-0-20, amending the zoning map to remove 2044 Wesley Avenue from the West Evanston West Overlay District. Plan Commission recommends denial, and staff recommends that City Council consider the intent of the West Evanston Master Plan and logistical development issues at 2044 Wesley and surrounding parcels to determine if it is appropriate to remove the West Evanston overlay regulations for future development at this site. Special attention should be given to the plan and overlay details that require the extension of Jackson Avenue and Wesley Avenue that should one day become complete through streets. If deemed approval for the removal of the West Evanston overlay, the site would follow the zoning regulations for the underlining R4 General Residential District. Do I have a motion for introduction? And a second?
Second.
All right. So we have one speaker, John Cleary. Oh, would you like to come to the podium and make your comments?
Hi, John Cleary is my name. I'm the owner of part of this property, 2044 Wesley Avenue. I'm a resident of Evanston, and I just wanted to put a small presentation up about the development, about what we're doing.
Okay.
Currently, this is a vacant old railroad easement. You might notice it as the two embankments going up Green Bay Road on the left and right hand side beside the public storage area. The West Evanston overlay is overlaying this district, and it requires a street to be built between Wesley and Jackson, and then to extend Jackson all the way to Simpson. The intent of the West Evanston, if you want to the next slide, please. Sorry. Oh, thank you. So this kind of gives you a view of the property here, the green area here running all the way down. You've got the public storage facility, the two large buildings there. Next to that, you also have the parking lot next to that, which you see the cars parked on just on Simpson Street, on the south side of Simpson Street. That's actually a car park belonging to the Walgreens property across the road, and that's where the staff parking is for that building across the road. We're looking to develop part of this property. Part of this property is not part of the overlay district. The part on Jackson, 100-foot by 150-feet lot on Jackson is not part of the overlay district. It is an R5 zone property that allows for a larger multi-story building on it. We think that the area is best suited to townhouses, which the West Evanston overlay has called for. So we devised a development plan to create 16 townhouses and a 3.5-story apartment building on the 12-unit apartment building on the R5 zoned area on Jackson. We think that the overall, goals of the West Evanston overlay, we've tried to keep to those as much as possible. We think we are maintaining the vast majority of things that were asked for and were required for in the overlay district. We've kept all this to townhouses because we believe that's a property type that Evanston needs, it requires. They'll be affordable from a point of view that they will be moderately priced entry-level new construction homes in the $475,000 to $525,000 range. There will also be 3 of these that will be affordable housing. So this is a site that has never been built on. It has never been developed. We're not tearing down any houses. We're not putting anybody out of their house. We're taking an old disused railway line that has sat idle and we're putting it into good use. We're bringing it up to the standards of today. We've worked with the fire department, we've worked with the staff of the city to come up with a plan. This is probably our 4th or 5th iteration of the plan to get it to a situation which the fire department has approved. The public works department have, conditionally approved it. And the main things that we've done to meet the overlay, the guiding principles of the overlay district is we've created a green area, which was you see the landscape area on the top right. We've created a green area here. We'll create pathways from Green Bay Road all the way to Wesley and to Jackson, walkways, pathways, linking the two. We will have a private drive or, an alleyway as such for entry to the townhouses from the rear. So we will connect Wesley with Jackson. We will also have walkability in the neighborhood. We'll also extend Jackson Avenue as it goes to the end of the property. We don't own the property behind it, so we can't extend it any further. But it will allow for future to be extended all the way to Simpson. So again, one of the guiding principles of the overlay district. We've tried to keep as much as possible, and I've studied them extensively, and we've moderated our plans to work with the overlay district as best as possible. And we think it's a very reasonable plan. We think it's very suitable for the neighborhood. These are going to be 3 stories, 3.5 stories tall, 2,000 square feet each. They're not oversized or overdeveloped or over-contrived, shall we say. So we will connect some of the guiding principles is with the overlay. So we'll connect a new pathway and a new roadway from Wesley to Jackson. We'll extend the existing Jackson to the end of the street. We'll create the new green space along Green Bay Road, new trees and new landscaping along the pathways. We'll also extend Jackson Avenue, as we've mentioned, and then we'll provide 28 new homes without demolishing any existing housing stock. We'll provide 3 new affordable houses and 25 moderately priced houses. We believe in $475,000 to $525,000, $2,000 in a mortgage a month. That's what we think you'll be able to buy one of these for. So it's a housing stock that I think Evanston needs. The 5th principle of the overlay district relates to commercial. There's no commercial, this is not zone commercial, so we've ignored that principle.
Okay, thank you. And did you want to make some comments as well?
No, I'm Dan Lauer, an attorney for John, and I would just say that if the committee has seen the staff's recommendation to not remove the overlay, but the overlay evidently had some possibly unattainable goals in it, and it was written evidently in 2007, and it may be time to rethink that. So if the committee this evening would not remove the overlay, then I think it would have to be done in the future on a two-step basis, a partial release of the overlay with the planned development application.
Okay, thanks. So, committee members, some questions or comments? Yep, Alderman Wilson.
There's a lot of narrative in the packet, which I appreciate, but I'm taking away from that as a practical matter, it doesn't seem like much can be done with this unless this is done without compiling other properties, some of which aren't for sale. Is that a fair, all-in kind of end-of-the-road assessment?
I believe when the West Evanston plan was adopted, the idea was that many of these properties would become available. They were railway right-of-ways. There was generally a common ownership of a handful of the properties, and generally the economy was doing well at that point. So acquiring any property you would need seemed like a reasonable assumption to make.
Okay. All right. And I think given that it hasn't quite panned out that way, making some changes to me seems to make some sense. So, or maybe makes a lot of sense.
Alderman Fisk?
What's the direction from Alderman Ruth Simmons? This is her ward, right?
I haven't heard from her. I don't know.
Okay.
Alderman Rainey? Okay.
I have to admit, I am not up to speed on this, other than what I've read in this packet. I don't know if other people have been following this. I don't know. If you have, I would love to have some insight, but I'm not sure why this isn't being embraced. And what I would like is I would like not to dismiss this. I think that would be a shame to lose this opportunity. So I guess I would ask you, what could we do to keep you involved here and not lose you while some of us get up to speed? I don't know if this committee, I really don't know if you all have been involved in this, and I've just been out doing my thing someplace else.
So the interim city manager, Storley, just shared Alderman Ruth Simmons is supportive of the development that would follow this potential map amendment, assuming that they would be subject to the inclusionary housing ordinance, which they would be, since they have not submitted a planned development application at this time, and they would come under the current IHO rules.
I'm glad to hear that. I think we're on the same page. Yeah. Could this be for introduction, and then some of us who haven't done our homework could do it?
Right.
I mean, I've read
It is
everything that
introduction,
we've
yeah.
been given.
It's just introduction.
I know, but I mean,
I mean, would you like to keep it in committee so we could have a chance to get further up to speed on it and more discussion?
would
or-
love that,
Well,
yeah.
that
Or we could
doesn't
even
really-
introduce it and still talk about it in committee, at the next.
Sure, I would like to introduce, and it's not the plan development application, so this is
No,
just kind of
yeah.
step one. So
There are several steps left.
Right.
So I'm inclined to introduce it, get it to
Okay,
council.
I
and we
would
can-
like that too, yeah.
and
Well,
it's-
I guess I'm going to express a little bit of hesitation that I think there's still a lot of uncertainty about exactly what the plan development would look like, and
But
so
there
I-
isn't one, so we don't have to worry about that yet. I mean, they have a lot
No
of work.
plan
to do.
Right, no, but if we make the map amendment, then, then
We're
the
just
plan development.
introducing. We're just introducing. We're going to do a lot of work. I'm going to do a lot of work on this before it comes up for action.
At council.
And hopefully Alderman Simmons will too. So I don't think like Alderman Wilson says, there's no danger in introducing this. We have work to do. Nothing can happen
Okay.
while it just sits here for 2 weeks.
Yeah. So moved.
Yeah, it's whatever you like. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, I just had a question. Have you actually purchased the property?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm the owner of the property, yes.
Okay.
There's two portions to this property. I purchased one portion of it, which is about 1.25 acres. I have an option to purchase the second part of the property as well.
Which
But
acre do you own?
I own so I own everything that's involved with building all this development right now. I'm currently the owner of that property. So if So this property here, I own all this property here.
Oh, wow.
And I have an option to purchase this property here. There are some issues with this property, so it's a much more difficult piece to bite off. Initially, I'd planned to purchase the entire property at one go, but after we did our phase 2 and we did our environmental assessments, we just decided to purchase for the moment this entire piece here.
Go ahead, Alderman Fisk.
What kind of remediation do you need to do?
So we've done phase 2 soil tests in this area here, and there is going to be quite extensive remediation that we will need to do on this property. And again, me as the owner of this property, pursuant to getting a plan for townhouses, the townhouses will pay for that remediation. It's not something we're asking the city to pay for. It's not something we're looking for. A development of this size can sustain the cost of the remediation that's required. There's also, what you don't realize as well, is there's also the abutment bridge right here, which is probably a 20-foot structure. Mm-hmm. That's also got to come down. So again, that's something that, this development will pay to remove as well and replace it with green space. So again, that's something that, as a property owner, if we can get this plan or very close to it done, it'll more than pay for the cost of the work that's required on the site and remediate the site and bring this into good use with the community.
Okay, so may I?
Go ahead, yes.
So explain to me what you're going to do about when you're building, about the difference in height. I actually like the part of the viaducts that's there, but how are the townhouses going to sit if?
So we would like to remove the viaduct.
Yeah.
To remove it entirely, and create an open space, probably 20 or.
And then level it.
And level it, yes, and then the townhouses would sit along a curve. The bridge is right there. The abutment's right there.
Right.
This is the public storage area right here.
Right.
This is all the public storage. So we would curve the townhouses along with the site, so just to create a curved site. And we would level it out pretty much, or bring it back to a leveled area. So it would all be the one or a very similar grading.
I'm familiar with the site. Did staff look at water runoff from this?
We don't have an active plan development here. I realize that the applicant for the map amendment is talking about the development he's proposing, but we only reviewed this based on the standards for the map amendment, because we don't have a plan
Right.
development beforehand.
But we would be rezoning for this particular development, basically, for this particular.
From staff's perspective, we're just rezoning it based on the standards, not for a particular development, since we don't have it before us. We don't have an application. I'm not trying to walk around your question. I just want to be clear that we don't have a development to review.
And I understand your question, and that's why I asked the question, if he had actually purchased the property and closed on it.
So we've engaged a civil engineering contract, Mr. Bernie Bono, and he will be engaged to do underwater and retention and things like that will be retained on the site. But the issue with the property is that the underlying zoning is R4, but there's an overlay on the district that requires us to put in a road linking Wesley to Jackson. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't, if the road is meant to be built between those streets, There's nowhere to put townhouses. There's nowhere to put anything. So moving Jackson all the way up to Simpson is fine. We're going to keep along those sort of lines. We're going to leave enough road and we're going to create enough of the street to move it that way. But the reason we want the overlay removed is so that we don't have to build a street between Wesley and Jackson, a public street, and that we would provide a private drive and a walkway linking the two right there.
Okay. Madam Chair, I guess I feel like I'd like to keep this in committee. I mean, that's just,
Right.
I've got enough
Yeah,
questions.
I think this is an appropriate place to keep, having further conversation.
Sure.
Is that something that you want to make a motion about, Alderman Fisk or Alderman Wilson? Go ahead.
I actually wasn't going to move to keep that.
Oh.
I do kind of want to move it along. And part of the, in reading through the materials, what I hear them saying is that they want to make sure that they can get through this step before they incur all the costs for the, really particularly expensive part. So I think kind of putting them to task for the balance of it defeats the purpose of what they're trying to accomplish. Frankly, even if let's say he decided to walk away from it, what they're suggesting seems like this will help facilitate something happening with the problem with the property in any event. So my inclination is to kind of keep it going forward, to make this change for this property so something happens with it. Hopefully something awesome that you guys come up with, or even if that doesn't work out, somebody else could come along and not have to, jump through this hurdle to get something done with the property. So that's my inclination, and I hear what the concerns are as far as the broader perspective goes. But let's get this property moving along so it's put to some useful purpose.
I agree. We're going to find out, more quickly this way,
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
Yeah.
so Alderman Fisk, are there particular issues that you would like to see further fleshed out for this committee before it moves on, or?
Well, the ones I mentioned, the impact not only on Green Bay Road, but also, that property, when you stand there, it's absorbing a lot of water and it's sitting up higher. And I'd like to hear from our staff what the effect of that might be, because I don't know, and that's not my area of expertise. So I would like to know that. And and I'd also like to know about the remediation, about the cost of remediation. On properties like this, it's very difficult to build residential. You're not just putting a layer of asphalt over the affected land. You're actually going to be building on it, and people are going to be walking on it in their bare feet. So there's extra steps you need to go through. I'd like to know about that. Is it going to hurt you if we keep this in committee for one more meeting? And I would like Alderman Simmons to be here in committee as well.
We're aware of the environmental impacts. We've already gone out and hired an environmental consultant, and we're working with them to create a plan, and with the city to create a plan that will work for everybody, that is safe. I live in Evanston. I have 3 children in school here. I don't want to be at school one day and find out somebody is complaining about the property I built. Like, I'm part of the community. So it's very important for me to keep my good name and to leave this for the future, for the next 30, 40 years, in good shape.
Right.
That's not my goal.
And I understand that, but the question was, what more information, would I like to have? And like Alderman Rainey said, this is a complicated, different, multi-layered project, and I would just like to feel a little bit more comfortable going forward that we've got some of these basic questions answered.
They know.
That's my feeling.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, these folks know what they have to do. They will tell you. I think it might help, Alderman Fisk, if you would give her the details in writing of who your engineers are, et cetera. And we demand these specifications from any builder. It's absolutely required.
It's
So,
a third party, sorry.
I'm not, these are the things I'm not concerned about. I'm more concerned about the things I don't know about. But they know all of this.
We could move this on to the city council, and if it needs more than one discussion at city council, we can hold it there for further conversation.
And if that's what the rest of you want to do, I'm fine with that. I do pretty much feel that these conversations are better kept in committee than at council.
And Alderman Fisk, they can't do any testing on the properties they don't own, unless.
No, I understand that, Alderman Rainey. Have we heard from any of the neighbors about potentially flooding, or have we heard from our Public Works Director about the impact on Green Bay Road? I would just like to know that. I mean, I was asked if I had questions. These are my questions. So if you want to move it to council, that's fine. I would prefer to keep it in committee.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in agreement with Alderman Fisk about keeping it in committee, which gives us 2-2 vote here. So what do we do about that?
So vote, and if it's tied, it doesn't go forward.
It
Okay.
stays.
Right, but we stay in committee and not die. I mean, we're not.
Doesn't
No,
die,
no, it's not
right.
dying.
So
Right, it's just staying.
it's moved and seconded to advance it for introduction, so we can vote on that.
Okay, all in favor of introduction, moving it on to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No.
Madam Chair, just as a point,
Yeah.
it still moves on to council, just with a neutral
Okay, well,
recommendation.
then, can we have a,
That's okay, I misspoke, I apologize.
so can we now just reconsider and,
You say it stays in, I mean, the recommendation is that
It
it
goes to
stays.
council, but it just remains, it's a neutral recommendation.
So it goes as a neutral recommendation, but if the rest of the council wanted to send it back to committee, that could also happen.
okay.
Is that what we've done in the past?
You've sent stuff back to committee.
Yes, I know, but on a vote, I mean, normally it goes from committee to council.
We rarely tie, though, so.
With P&D, there's rarely a tie because there's 7 of you generally, but I've seen it at APW where there's been a neutral recommendation.
Okay.
All right, so this is going to go on to city council without a recommendation, but obviously we look forward to further discussion with you. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, so we have one more item on the agenda. This is Ordinance 35-0-20, amending Title VI, ground floor uses in the D2 district. Plan Commission and staff recommend amending the zoning ordinance to modify currently permitted ground floor uses, including offices and financial institutions, to special uses in order to encourage active ground floor uses that promote pedestrian activity and an economically vibrant downtown corridor in the D2 downtown retail core district. Do I have a motion for introduction?
So moved.
And is there a second? Wow, I'll second it. So, questions, thoughts, comments? Alderman Wilson.
Just given the challenges that a number of property owners are having getting their spaces filled, I have some reservations on this, but I guess I'd be interested in hearing what my other colleagues who have constituents downtown have to think. So moving it to council wouldn't be a bad thing.
Alderman Fisk.
So I'd like to hear from staff about their opinion on this.
I believe that this just brings the rest. We have a similar special use requirement for Main Dempster area. We hear from merchants their frustration about the quote non-active ground floor uses, financial institutions, things like not to pick on Charles Schwab, but those types of uses that don't necessarily promote exciting storefronts and active storefronts. I think we had a similar discussion a few years ago about artist studios at the ground floor. So this is just adding that to be more consistent with other parts of Evanston.
Have we had any conversations with the property owners in the downtown?
I think we have our anecdotal conversations. The market is challenging to find tenants, period. So I think generally they don't like to rent to these types of uses, but they have to find a tenant sometimes, and that is a tenant. And I think we have to weigh as a community, do we want a vacant storefront or do we want something with a maybe less than desirable use, but it still is a use in our downtown.
And what's your professional opinion on what impact is this going to have on potential applicants to rent retail spaces?
So I think generally my experience over watching how special uses work in Evanston, generally the people who apply for special uses have done their homework to determine if they're a good use. I think particularly special uses, when they know that the reason for the special use is to create a vibrant and active downtown, they make efforts to plan their storefront, to plan their space, to try to create more activity. Recently, when we had a chiropractic office on Main Street, he made a point to say, I'm going to put some retail space in the front. I'm going to do some things that will promote some more active uses that make it more interesting to walk along the street and look in the window and see something. So I think that the special use piece has helped us manage those kinds of things in terms of creating certain fenestration and windows and activity. Without that, we don't necessarily have some of those controls.
Alderman Wilson?
Right. Well, one of the challenges, though, is with situations like that, it ends up being very, very, very costly for the person just to even, go through the process, and oftentimes it doesn't work out. So they've expended probably tens of thousands of dollars to find out they can't be a tenant. So, that would not be fun if you're the proposed business. So I generally tend to try to lean towards more, or certainty. So, I'd rather, rather than put people through a lot of process, have it, defined and flexible. So that's my inclination. But again, I'm not the boss of the downtown, but that's just part of my concerns.
Alderman Rainey, do you have any comments for us? Alderman Fisk, any further thoughts?
I'll just say anecdotally, some years ago there was a property owner of one retail building in the downtown, and people would complain that there were many vacant storefronts, and this particular property owner only wanted to rent 2 ground floor dental offices. And it was difficult to explain to people that property owners can do that if they want to. Now, can we force someone to go out and find a retail, or force someone to sort of comply with our vision for the downtown? It would be nice if we could do that, but we can't. And I hear what Alderman Wilson is saying, and I would rather have a occupied building than a vacant storefront. I think that's really important, because people do seem to react to the vacant storefront. I also am not sure, with everything that we've heard, and those of you who have come to the First Ward meetings have heard the reports of where our small retail is going in the downtown. So I really do want to fill these spaces, but I would like to fill them appropriately, and I appreciate the concept behind this, but I'm not sure that it in the long run achieves our goal of filling those storefronts. I would feel much better if we had talked to property owners or rental agents in the downtown first.
So this can always come back to the committee if staff gets further encouragement. Something. Yep. Well, this has been moved and seconded for, Alderman Rainey.
I think this is exactly the kind of thing we should keep in committee until we figure it out. I mean, I once had 7 churches in a block, and there was absolutely no activity on the street. And so I know what it's like not to have any activity on the street, and it's a very difficult thing. I mean, you can have beauty shops up and down your street, and if the beauty shops aren't open during the day or randomly open, that's a problem. I don't know what I think a small post office, you could have a whole lot of small post offices, but they're closing small post offices. I don't know what the answer is. You just have to, a Tag's Bakery and a Benison's, those are the things that are active, but just very difficult.
Yeah. Alderman Fisk.
Well, for example, we're replacing audio consultants, as the owner has retired and has closed, and it's being replaced with a child care center, and that's fine.
A pet shop.
No, it's not a pet shop.
No, I said that's a good thing to have on a first floor.
You're getting ahead of me here. And now you've really got me off subject. That's okay. I'll blame it on you. I've totally lost it. Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
You're welcome.
So would someone like to make a motion to hold it in committee, table it, something like that?
We're-
Second.
Was that a motion?
Alderman Rainey, did you move to hold it in committee?
Make a motion, we hold this in committee.
Holding it just is for one more meeting. Do we want to table it? So a little,
However you want, whatever you want.
let's table it so we have a
Table.
little more time. We have to do the date certain.
Can I discuss? Can I still discuss for a
Sure.
moment? Okay. I would like to invite some of the property owners and one of the larger real estate agents downtown just to give us, we had a very nice conversation over a year ago with one of them. We learned a lot about who's looking at space in the downtown, how that space is looking to be utilized, and the effect on the larger downtown. So I'd like to talk to Annie Coakley and a real estate agent about that and invite them to come to committee.
Okay. So why don't we table it to our first meeting in June, May? Well, how much time would staff? May?
If you'd like to table it to a meeting in May, and then from there we could give an update. You'll have at least 3 planned developments coming up, so we'd want to maybe schedule that around those items.
Okay. Okay, so we'll aim for our first meeting in
The 11th.
The 11th in May, of May. Okay, all in favor of the motion to table till May 11th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, unanimous. Is there, are there any items for discussion or communication? Then a motion to adjourn, please. In a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.